Hey there, folks. My name is Misadventure, and welcome to the first episode of the Carpetania Campaign. This is going to be a modded Let's Play of the game Imperator Rome, featuring the Imperator Invictus overhaul mod, the Invictus-compatible version of the Imperator's Navigable Rivers overhaul mod, and the 2.0 Better UI mod as well. Now, some information about the logistics of the series, including the release schedule, the video length, and just some other info like that, will be in the description down below beneath every video in the series, so check that out at your discretion if you like. Let's go ahead and get started. There's a lot to do in this first episode, and as traditional for a series on this channel, I don't necessarily know if I'll even unpause in this first episode, even though this will be an hour-long episode, so we shall see. Now, if you're super familiar with this game, you may be saying, hey, Misadventurer, you silly goose, you goofy goober, there is no Carpetania nation at the start of the game, and I would say, well, hey, I'm playing Imperator Invictus. And then you would say, being a smart cookie, hey, Misadventurer, you monstrous fiend, there is in fact no Carpetania nation in Invictus either, and you'd be correct. I am not playing as Carpetania quite yet. In fact, I'm playing as a nation with a different name, Duitiquia. Now, you may say, why not name this campaign the Duitiquia campaign? And there's a couple reasons. First of all, I am of Carpetanian culture and have Carpetanian heritage. If we switch over to the culture map mode, Carpetanian is the culture group, or rather the culture in the Celt-Iberian culture group, in the area I'll be playing in, which is Iberia. Here, my capital is going to be the location of Toletum. And the reason I'm calling this the Carpetania campaign is, first of all, because it's just easier and more fun to say than Duitiquia, because I'd have to say the name of the campaign at the start of every episode, even once I reformed, or rather, I formed a nation and changed the name of my tag. That being said, I also think that the name Carpetania better reflects the idea of this campaign in the early part especially, because we're going to be forming the Tier 1 formable of Carpetania very early on. I'll go ahead and spoil that that's going to be the early gameplay for Duitiquia here, which just involves, as you might imagine, uniting the Carpetanian tribes of central Iberia into one coherent nation, led by Biracusa Indutius, our extremely zealous leader here. Of course, you get a random roll whenever you launch this game, so I didn't get to decide what stats I'd get here. I have only 5 martial, a bit of a problem there. Let's hope that the other tribal chiefs are going to have some strong martial to make up for that. But my finesse is fine, and charisma and zeal are obviously quite strong. We're going to have powerful omens in the early game with this kind of zeal, so that may help. I should note as well that we are Druidic, but we are not that far away from the Iberic section of Iberia, over here along the Mediterranean side of the coast. There's also some Canaanites hanging around here and some Hellenics coming in, all this colonization in southern Iberia. Someday we will hopefully be able to throw the colonizers out into the ocean and claim Iberia for the Iberians, but that day is nowhere near this day because we have a lot to do before we get to any sort of point to challenge the Carthaginian and Greek presences on Iberia. So, playing as Duitiquia, let's take a look at our starting situation here before we even start the game, before we even unpause. We do have Carpetanian heritage, which is a unique heritage. The Carpetanians are a tribe with a humble heritage in the very center of the peninsula, often overlooked by their neighbors. What may appear as weakness is in fact their strength. While the others endlessly squabble among themselves, the Carpetanians prefer to thrive in peace and build mighty coalitions that may strike when the time for war inevitably comes. So our heritage bonuses and malices are, I think, a bit of a mixed bag, but ultimately more good than bad. I think you can really get screwed over by certain heritage modifiers if you have 2 weak bonuses and 1 very severe malice. It may not be worth it to go with that particular tag. Of course, all the Carpetanian tribes all share Carpetanian heritage, so I've picked Duitiquia because I think it'd be interesting to have Toletum as our capital. You can actually see that it connects with the river Tagus, which I believe is a INR edition, and I've checked you can build a port in Toletum onto the river, and this river does go all the way out to the Atlantic, so we do have a connection, despite being in the center of a very land-surrounded area. We do have this connection to the ocean, so my naval game is not doomed despite this very inland start, which is great for me to hear. But more importantly, for the Carpetanian heritage, import value minus 5% is going to hurt the most in the early game when we're going to be importing more so for money than for bonuses. This percent modifier doesn't affect the surplus bonuses of imported goods. It only affects the actual gold gained from importing. So we're not going to be importing for gold even very long into the mid-game, and ultimately, as usual, I intend to have more of an export trade focus than an import trade focus. The bonuses are both good, but not great. National pop growth is probably the better of the two. I like to have large populations, and we do definitely plan to have some large populations with the later game plans that I have for the Carpetania campaign. Not going to reveal them quite yet, but I will later in this episode. You may be surprised by what I have to say about that. And we do also have the Improve Opinion maximum 10%. Not a great bonus in my experience. I don't tend to focus on maintaining strong relationships with people for a long time, unless I'm scared they'll attack me. I tend to play this game very pragmatically and only maintain relationships for the specific purposes I need them to exist for, and not out of just sheer goodwill. So this is not a bad bonus, but it's not going to necessarily be game-changing for our particular start. Certain heritage bonuses and malices can actually really change the way you play the game. If you have, for example, a malice that gives you much higher subject loyalty from you to your overlord, and you start as a vassal, that's a completely different game for you than if you didn't have that modifier, as an example. So overall, not too consequential with the heritage, which is honestly fine, because it gives me more flexibility to decide what to do on the fly. Now, we are a settled tribe, as you might imagine. We are tribal-type government, which means that we have lifelong rulers, and when they die, the way it works is that one of the other tribal chiefs gets elected in their stead. So you switch between tribal chiefs, and of course each tribal chief is also from a different great family. So the great families kind of trade off in that way. The tribal chiefs are elected for life by a council of the clan leaders. This is a society that has come to settle permanently in its region, embracing a sedentary lifestyle. And I will reveal one spoiler. We are going to be reforming out of the tribal state, and you can actually play a viable permanent tribal game in Imperator Rome, and in Invictus. I think it's actually a little more interesting to do it like that, particularly if you want to play something like a migratory tribe that really does stick to the tribal roots. But I don't really like to play in the tribal stage beyond where I need to. I like the flexibility of starting somewhere that doesn't really have more advanced types of civilizations yet by playing as a tribe, but I also like reforming and being able to form a more civilized society surrounded by barbarians that I can, consume. So we're going to be starting as a tribe here. We also have Druidic Religion, a returning feature from the Carpetania campaign all the way back when, but this is the Imperator Invictus rebalanced Druidic Religion, so there are going to be some changes. We'll see if Andraste is our go-to once more, probably, but we'll see what happens this time around. Druidic gives us 2 bonuses and 1 malice as well. The Discipline malice of minus 2.5% is important for us to keep in mind, but only when we're fighting non-Druidic nations. If we're fighting other Druidic tags, they're going to also have this modifier. So all of our early wars will be against people who also have the exact same malice, so it's not going to really matter. When we're fighting the Iberics, it actually will matter more, because the Iberics not only don't have that, they also have a 5% morale bonus for their light infantry. And so when we're fighting against the Iberics, we really will need to keep in mind their military advantages from the religious situation. Now, we also do get 5% state religion happiness, which is handy. We're going to be fairly mono-religious in our core. Once we expand out to the kind of Iberic frontier, we may start to deal with Iberic populations, but around here, everybody is Druidic, a little bit like the Carpetania campaign. Not really going to have any religious diversity around here, but unlike the Carpetania campaign, where we were just surrounded by Druidic everywhere, over here, there is a bit more religious diversity, but we're not quite on the frontier where we start, so we'll just have to keep that in mind. But state religion happiness is quite a nice bonus, just to keep our population cheerful and productive. Population happiness is a pretty important part of this game that in the early parts of my channel I often overlooked, and I think I've corrected so that now I'm a lot more focused on that. And I think that Invictus does actually make population happiness maybe even more important because of how it rebalances your economy. So lastly, we've got manpower recovery speed plus 2.5%. This is a huge bonus because I constantly am struggling against the lack of manpower during the tribal stage. That's the recurring bottleneck resource for me is manpower. So this is going to help out a little bit. As usual for my campaigns, I'm going to play my wars extremely carefully and strategically to try and preserve manpower at every step possible. So we are going to hopefully enjoy this bonus here. Now, lastly, we are of Carpetanian culture, as noted before. Anyone of Carpetanian culture can go ahead and form Carpetania as a decision, which we'll see in the game in a moment. And we're part of the Celt-Iberian culture group, which is essentially, doesn't quite 100% overlap with, but it more or less overlaps with the Druidic following Iberians up here. So that's that. Now, I already talked about Burakusa there. I think that's everything to say about the starting situation. Let's go ahead and start the game here. I will be playing on Iron Man. As you can see there, with mods enabled, Iron Man mode does not turn on achievements. That's totally fine. I thought about whether to do Iron Man or not, and ultimately what I decided was having Iron Man on is an important part of how I feel accountable for playing the game at the level of focus that I do. If I don't have Iron Man on, I just don't really feel as motivated to play this game as closely as I do, and that's how I like to play the game. So we're going to play with Iron Man mode on. Of course, again, small spoiler for the Talantia campaign, I essentially lost the Talantia campaign because I had Iron Man mode on, because I couldn't go back in time and redo a certain strategic decision that I made. That's fine. That's the kind of situation, the kind of end state that I think is fair, because of course I spend a lot of time with this game, and I've got to be able to grow my knowledge and to foster my familiarity with this game to avoid decisions like that. So we're going to play strategically, carefully, and comfortably in the early part here. Now, we're going to keep gender rules as usual. I'm not sure if I actually get mixed gender governments. I think I do as a Druidic nation. Yeah, I think I probably do as a Druidic nation, so we're going to leave this alone. I wouldn't turn this on even if I didn't. I actually prefer mixed gender governments because it just makes the game easier, and it's honestly just a gameplay thing. I think that it's more interesting to have all of your characters be part of your state, but I suppose you could argue that it's a little easier without them. Actually, let me address this. I think that one could argue that having a monogender government, a male-only government, is easier because there's less characters to worry about. And while that's true, it's harder if you have a grasp on micromanaging the government, which I think I do to a fairly okay degree in this game. Because if you have more characters and you can still keep on top of it, you've got more good characters that are competent for the different roles. So essentially, if you have a non-mixed gender government, you're really relying on the few characters you can use being competent enough to make your government get the modifiers it needs. So that's essentially the trade-off, and I'm happy to have a mixed government by default. I hope, at least. I'm not entirely sure. We now have a few options here from the Invictus overhaul mod. The dynastic Duitiquia names seems to just be a UI thing. It just renames Macedon and Thrace to, I'll show you what it does here, to the Antipatrid Kingdom and the Lysimacan Kingdom. I'll turn this on just so that it's consistent with the other kingdoms. Ptolemaic Kingdom is also changed from Egypt, so we'll turn that on. This one over here, the new Duitiquia CB mechanics, I don't exactly know what this does, but I'm not likely to have this particular option affect me for quite a long time, hopefully, so we'll leave it on just because it's on by default, so I'll assume it's balanced to be on. So with that being said, let's start the game here. Can I name this the Carpetania Campaign? All right, here we go. So, 1st of October, 450 AVC. Let's take a look at the starting situation now. As I noted earlier, we are going to be uniting the Carpetani in the early game. You can see here what this requires. This is essentially pretty similar to the forming Prytania decision back from the Acadia campaign, where it requires all of the actual settlement tiles in the region, or in the province, as opposed to just a couple miscellaneous specific spots like in the Talantia campaign. So our people yearn for a leader strong enough to unite the clans which consider themselves of Carpetani heritage. It is clear that we are the only viable leader skilled enough to do this. So what we need is to, let's see here, be a tribe, So Carpetania can't exist yet, so there's that. We have to be a tribe, we have to be at peace, we can't be in a civil war, and the entire province of Carpetania has to be owned by me or my subject, and that's an important thing for us to keep in mind. We can subjugate other tribes on our way to forming this, and then they get sort of annexed immediately by this decision. So this is a Tier 1 formable, which is fine. There aren't any other Tier 1 formables that I would be considering except for this one. We change our name to Carpetania, which will then line us up with the name of the campaign, so that's pretty good. We adopt the Federated Tribe government form, which is a different thing than the Settled Tribe government form. I won't go into all the differences quite yet, but essentially it's a more kind of... it's sort of closer than Settled Tribe to being civilized, but it's you can still civilize from being a Settled Tribe. There's some other differences too, but I'll talk about them later. Any subject provinces required to form Carpetania will be annexed. That's what I was just saying a moment ago. This is just reaffirming to you as the viewer of the UI that that's how that works. And you get 4 tribesman pops who are Carpetanian Druidics in our nation. And Toletum gains Emergent Center of Civilization, which with some permanent bonuses to local pop growth, local fort defense, and local civ level. And we get 2 free province investments, so that's pretty good. So as you might imagine, we're going to eventually form Greater Iberia. This is the long-term goal of the campaign. I will go ahead and reveal now 2 things about this campaign that I think are going to make this an interesting watch, especially as we proceed more into the mid-game and late game. First of all, I've decided to not go beyond Iberia in terms of continental expansion. Now, what I mean by this, let me pull this up here. The borders of Terra Conesus, or sort of quote-unquote the northeast border of Iberia with the Pyrenees Mountains here, this is going to be the extent of my continental expansion. I will not expand continentally into Gaul. What I will allow myself, and that, I mean, obviously I'm going to try and fully control Iberia. That's sort of the short-term, long-term goal of the campaign, is to fully control Iberia, kick out the Carthaginians, all that stuff. But I won't try and extend a land empire into Gaul. What I will do is colonize, and I'll be colonizing out from Iberia all over the place. I'll be colonizing up across the Atlantic and North Sea. I'll be colonizing into the Mediterranean. I'll be a colonial power, but from Iberia only. I will not try to expand on the land into Gaul. And you might ask, why do I have this restriction? Just essentially to give myself a sense of a structure for the campaign. Because in the Icenia campaign, I could have not tried to extend a land empire in Northern Gaul, which, again, spoilers for the Icenia campaign. I ultimately did set up sort of a, I think I called it the sort of the English Channel Empire, where I had territory I intended to be my core territory in Northern Gaul and sort of in Belgica, along within Britannia. And ultimately, that was going okay, but I think it makes the game a little too routine to just expand and try to core everything that you take. Having this land be my intended core, and then everything else I take in Africa, into the Mediterranean, in the Atlantic and all that, have that be intended to be colonial land that I exploit, and not land that I core and develop, will, I think, make for an interesting alternative experience in the late game. But that's going to be in the late game. We are far, far away from having that be something we get up to right now. So we're not going to even really look at the Form Greater Iberia decision quite yet. We'll form Carpetania first, then take a look at this, because this requires quite a lot of difficult maneuvers, including taking on Carthage at least a little bit here, and probably more so by the time we get here. So that's that. Also got some other decisions here. Abandon sedentary lifestyle, I will never select. This one is just not a direction I intend to go. This is how you switch to a migratory tribe from a different tribal form. Tribal form we will select once we hit 60 centralization, so that will allow us to switch from being a tribe into a different government form. And then lastly, codify state lands. This essentially allows us to add some civilization value to our capital in exchange for political influence and 50 gold. This is probably worthwhile once we do hit 50 centralization and we're able to click this button, so we'll keep this in mind. We also need to have Hill Fort Initiative Law at that point to do that. Now, the big reveal about this campaign, about the reform we're going to do. We're going to reform into a republic, not into a monarchy. This is probably the biggest departure from my previous campaigns that I've done. I'll fully admit I don't have a lot of experience with republics, and this is the campaign I want to get those experiences. I think playing as essentially a tall Iberia, given that we'll control all of Iberia, that's a very wide, tall Iberia, but it is tall in spirit. I think it'd be interesting to play as a republic because republics tend to do better with tall and kind of development-focused nations. Monarchies are much, much easier for conquest and war, which we won't be doing as much of in the later game with this campaign. So our goal for this campaign is to form tall Iberia, essentially tall Republican Iberia, which makes our capital being Duletum even more appropriate given its historical connection with Republican Spain in much more recent history. But anyways, that's essentially the long-term goals for the campaign. Let's take a look now at our ideas. Now, I will be grabbing both of these idea slots. We don't have the political influence bottleneck that we had in the Carpetania campaign when we were in a rush to form Illyria. This time around, we have a lot more options and a lot fewer people to worry about, so we're not going to be quite as careful with political influence. We will be more careful probably with manpower because we have much, much less manpower than in the Carpetania campaign. And also in the Kenya campaign as well, I think. So we're going to pick both of our ideas now because the tribesman happiness is extremely important given most of our people are tribesmen, a military and a oratory idea. I think that even though permanent shipyards will probably be a smart switch later in the future, for now I will probably be going for martial ethos. Any military advantage I can eke out in the early game is going to be absolutely critical, so martial ethos it is. Ensuring that our soldiers and veterans hold a prestigious place in the social hierarchy is key to their contentment and loyalty. There we go. Next, an oratory idea. As usual, I'm probably going to go for sanctioned privileges. Military administration is going to be actually pretty good once we are a republic if we do have access to an oratory idea. Even if we don't, we may end up going off of the idea slot types and ignoring the bonus if it makes sense to. Hospitium doesn't matter at all for our current situation. We also already have a bonus to this from our heritage, so that's fine. And this one is okay, but sanctioned privileges is just so good. Just fighting corruption in the background all the time is super important given how expensive it is to crack down on corruption later on. So by agreeing to look the other way from time to time, we can lessen our reliance on using currency as a tool for bribery. All right, so that's that. We get our national tribesman happiness. Very good. Okay, so let's also take a look at the settled tribe modifiers, which don't matter a whole lot because this is what everybody else around us will also have, but just so that we know, 0.15 morale, 15% national manpower, and 20% manpower recovery speed. To counteract their usually pretty low populations, tribes do get a lot of manpower bonuses, so that's pretty good. Army morale recovery plus 5%, and then we get 5% basic civ level and a 7.50% levy size multiplier. Okay, so we are in the reign of Tribal Chief Duitiquia, who I think looks quite dashing with that that sort of dangly beard situation. Maybe not that part, but he's otherwise a dashing youngster. He is lapsed, so that's not so great. He is, ironically for being so zealous, he is lapsed. So reduced omen power, which will be reducing the effect of his good zeal, so that's a little unfortunate. Also reduced loyalty, but he is the Tribal Chief, so that doesn't matter so much. Once a fervent believer, Duitiquia abandoned his faith long ago. He also is ambitious, which is great for our leader. That's another -5 loyalty, although he is the ruler, so that's totally fine. Some great wonder construction modifiers, which aren't going to matter at all for his lifetime, I assure you. I'm not sure if the statesmanship matters if he's the chief. Probably not. Attraction as heir doesn't matter because he's the ruler. 20 prominence is pretty good, although I think his prominence is basically capped out because he is the ruler. Yep. Yeah, so that's capped out. And then just 1 to every other attribute, and then also increased cohort loyalty gain chance. That's fine. I'm not too worried about cohort loyalty early in the game here, so that's essentially all that. He also has a wife and 2 children. His wife is named Katia. She's actually a couple years older than he is. She is shrewd and jealous, and her stats are terrible. Oh my god, I'm so glad I didn't get her as the ruler. Loyalty is okay. 66 loyalty is going to probably be no trouble at all. And she's of the Arosa family. Let's see if that's a great family in a moment. Then we have 2 kids. We have a daughter, Katia, named for her mother, and then a son, Seneca, who is, I think... Or no, this is another daughter, not a son. Yeah, this is a daughter. A daughter, Seneca. Seneca's also a female Gallic name, so I'm not sure why I thought it was a male. An oddly buxom 5-year-old. Not entirely sure what's going on with this character graphic, but we have the the most prepubescent developed 5-year-old daughter in the universe. That's very bizarre. Not sure what's going on with that. Very cursed. But Seneca here is our buxom tiny baby 5-year-old, and yeah, that's just great. Anyways, let's stop looking at that character graphic. I think this is just a weird graphical glitch. I don't think this child sprite is supposed to have that body attached to it. Not sure what's going on, just some Imperator strangeness, but we're not going to worry about that too much. It's a sign from the gods that our future is to be a developed nation. There we go. I've turned it into something cool instead of being something cursed. So that's our leader. Let's take a look now at our government. We are currently at 10% centralization, so that's giving us some research points, country, civ level, and pop promotion speed bonuses. That's pretty good. Currently not changing, but we are going to address that in a moment. We also have some other chiefs to think about. We have got this guy here, Mandu Brachius Aroses, which I believe is the name of my wife's house, so I think she's probably from that house. Let's take a look at his loyalty and see here. Married to the ruler family. Okay, yeah, there we go. So Mandu Brachius Aroses is the chief of the Arosii clan. He's got some really good marshals, so this guy's probably going to be our general, unless the other guy has even better marshal. He's also got a wife, Maev in Duitiquia, which I think is actually my family, so we've got a kind of, what's it called? A bilateral marriage situation with the Aroses clan. So they're going to hopefully be pretty loyal to the Duitiquia family for this guy's lifetime. This guy, though, in terms of traits, he's got ambitious, that's a loyalty malice, and he's also got tolerant. So loyalty is okay. It's being offset a lot by that bilateral marriage. That's pretty good. I'll take a look at his wife because she is a officer, so we do have mixed gender government. That's pretty good. She's the war chief. She's got... I'm not going to look at the traits for the characters in the government. I'll look at the traits for the clan chiefs and maybe my own immediate family, but I'll just look at the stats for the government people. Is war chief a military thing? I may have to switch around my government in a moment. So lastly, we've got Beowesus Galbus, chief of the Galbai clan. This guy's got pretty good finesse, but otherwise he's just average. And trait-wise, he's got a reduced loyalty trait, and he's got... this one's pretty good, so... He is a bit more on the fence loyalty-wise, but he should be okay, as long as I don't do anything too goofy towards him. We'll see what he says in the War Council I'm about to call in a moment. His loyalty, though, is fine at the minute. And he's also got a wife, Ancasta. Wait, is he married to the family, too? No, that's Indutia. Indutius? Hold on. And then Indutia. Maybe she just has a similar sounding name to my family name. Not entirely sure, who can say, but anyways. So we are going to call a war council, as one might expect, for the start of a tribal game. In terms of the target I want to get from the council, let's take a quick look at our starting neighbors and sort of explain what we need to do here. So, as you can see here, this is our Carpetanian provincial land, and then we do also have land over here in Terdulia Orientalis, which we don't need to worry about right now. Now, we have land that belongs to Solicia that we need. We also have land belonging to Tertalicia, to Alaricia, and also to Moenicia. So, essentially, Solicia, Tertalicia, Alaricia, and Moenicia appear. So, this is the section that we need. So, we want our claim from the War Council, our free claim, to be somebody that gets us in a good position to then steamroll through and in the early game get Carpetania united. Now, a big part of this here is deciding who our early game ally is going to be. I should note, I'm going to skip over to diplomacy here. We start on neutral stance. And while I do usually like to switch this to mercantile stance pretty quickly, there might be an advantage to staying on neutral stance in the early game to have another ally to help us in the early wars against these other tribes. And making the decision about who to ally for that purpose is going to be pretty important. A really good option here, I think, is actually Coherencia. These names are so hard to say. Coherencia, because they have a huge amount of land. They may even have, well, their army's probably not boosted from that, but they do have a lot of coverage in terms of land. And, importantly, they happen to completely not have land in Carpetania. They have land all around it, except for this part. But they don't have land in Carpetania, so I don't need to fight them in the early game. Now, one thing I'm thinking about is, once I do have Carpetania, what direction do I go in? And a big part of that is going to be what mission I get here. We did get mission in Duitiquia, which is probably not the one that I want, but because we have land in the Duitiquia, so I'm going to zoom out here. We have this tiny bit of land in Duitiquia right here. What it's highlighting here is, hold on, it's UI, I swear. Click me. Oh, whatever. So we have this land right here, basically. Wait, hold on. Do we? Wait. Yeah, here it is. The settlement of Salorbes is owned by us. So the mission is for Duitiquia. This is not the direction I necessarily want to go in, but I will go ahead and click this mission just to get it going so that we have the claims if we need them. The matter of Duitiquia. Our fortunes await in foreign lands. The Duitiquia region has been considered part of our borders, yet much of it remains beyond our control. Make sure that it is brought under our influence one way or another. This mission will be considered complete when the entire region of Duitiquia is under a Duitiquian influence. Duitiquia is probably the last region of Iberia I expect to actually fully control before I form Greater Iberia, just because I'd have to fight Carthage to get control of Duitiquia, which is obviously not possible anytime soon. So we can consult the clan council to get claims on Tordulia Orientalis, Malakitia, and Duitiquia Gadetanis. Let's take a quick look at where these places are. So Tordulia Orientalis is the section that we have land in. This is probably the province I'm likeliest to go for first because I already have a presence here, and it'd be pretty okay to fight Tordulia and Garamania. There's not a lot of people around here that I need to worry about too much, and just secure my kind of southern border there. We also get claims on Malakitia, which is over, where's Malakitia? It's this one here, and Duitiquia Gadetanis, which is this one here. So literally the ones that have Carthage in it. So these ones are not going to be annexable for quite a while. So the game has literally picked the spots that I'm the least likely to be able to conquer anytime soon. But at least the one in Tordulia Orientalis could be good. Now, one question I should ask is clicking this button actually wise if it means I get a claim on territory Carthage controls? Because the last thing I want is Carthage to be mad at me. And I think in the previous campaign, the Talente campaign, I was very concerned about stuff like that. And I think in retrospect, it's probably fine. I don't think Carthage is going to love me no matter what I do. We're a different culture group than them. We're a different religion than them. And if I get the claims on them, they're going to be upset. However, how likely is Carthage to actually declare war on me if I don't border them, if I'm not antagonizing them, if I'm not around other people that they're allied with? Carthage, if you can say one thing about them throughout this game, is going to have a lot of stuff happening around them that they're going to be distracted by. Carthage is not left alone. They are dealing with Rome, they're dealing with Etruria, they're dealing with Syracuse, they're dealing with the Africans, they're dealing with the over here, I guess the West Africans. They're completely preoccupied by everybody, and I don't think that having claims on them will be a decisive issue that destroys the campaign. So I think I'd rather get the claims because that gives me the claim to start conquering Tordulia Orientalis land. Let's go for it. So that's the mission sorted out. Let's come back over to government. That being said, which of these guys is going to make the most sense as an actual ally for my early wars? Now, I'm totally fine picking an ally that I'll turn on later in order to get the Carpetania formation in place. Now, I think a really good option, like I said a moment ago, is Coherencia, because they border a lot of people I might be targeting. Particularly, they border Caluria, and they also border Alaricia, and they can walk through my land to reach my wars if I'm fighting someone like Solicia. So if I get the free claim on Solicia, Coherencia would be a fairly good ally for that. Let me actually do the War Council first, so I can see which claims I get access to. Summon the War Council. All right, and we're going to do this on cooldown. I swear this time I'll remember to do this on cooldown. War Council assembles. The gruff voices barking over the sound of carousing outside yields an atmospheric setting for the latest meeting of the Duitiquian War Council. In attendance are several of the council's most well-respected members, Beoessus, a well-loved and competent leader, Exu Berata, a well-known rogue and philanderer, and Mandu Brachius, an expert in matters of personal combat. Barbed insults begin to fly as our advisors feign and reflect with consummate skill, each showing their prowess in political discourse. Ultimately, no compromise can be made, and we are left with three distinct directions. Boeosis is for war with Alaricia, which, let's remember, is the nation directly north of us, so they border us. Exuperata for Solicia, that's the nation south of us. Whereas Mandubrachius advocates a territorial war with Caloria, which is the single... No, hold on. Caloria... Where's the rest of Caloria's territory? Oh, they're up here, yeah. So Caloria is not in... Caloria is completely not within... Yeah, here's Caloria. So they're not within Carpetania. So the one option we're not going to pick is Caloria. That's Mandubrachius' option. So he's the most loyal at the moment, so that's kind of handy that the one we're not going to pick is his one. So the decision is between Solicia and Alaricia. Now, whichever one I don't pick, I'll probably form a claim on. And the other thing I have to consider is that this first war, which I'll do on the 1st of November, when you're allowed to declare wars, will be before whoever I target has made any alliances. The AI doesn't usually make alliances within the first month. So it'll be a fairly free war, especially because I'll be bringing in my allies. The second war is going to involve probably 2 and maybe 3 other participants. Probably 2 other participants. Maybe 1 or 2 participants, I guess I should say. Probably 1, maybe 2. And which of these situations would involve other participants that I'm more likely to want to annex to? In that sense, I actually think, here's what I should do. I'm going to click the option to get Solicia, because Solicia is a better target if they're alone. If I then fabricate a claim on Alaricia is likely to ally with people like Tertalicia and Moenicia and bring them into the war. Those are other people I want to fight too and get their land to form the land for to get the land to form Carpetania. So it actually makes a lot of sense to have Alaricia be my natural claim target as opposed to my war council target. So that's my thinking there. Hopefully that kind of makes sense for everybody. I haven't made a video in a long time, so I don't know if my explanation abilities have kind of faded away and need to be kind of sharpened again. So that's my thinking. Solicia is going to make sense as a solo target, and Alaricia is going to make sense as a claim target. We stand with Exuperata, ready the armies to march for Solicia. Going to lose some loyalty with the other people. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. This is such an important claim to get right away. So let's go for that. Make sure I'm Solicia. There we go. And now Boeosis is close to the disloyalty cap. 33 is the actual floor that you have to go below for it to become disloyal. So we'll keep an eye on him. Hopefully should be fine. Okay, that's that. So now that we've made our target, we need to decide who's going to make sense as an ally for upcoming wars. So I still think Coherencia is going to make sense as an ally, given that they border us. And they don't border Solicia, but they do border Alaricia. Just go ahead and offer an alliance to Coherencia. Yep. And the fact that they also border me, although I guess I should say they don't have a river crossing, so we'll have to keep that in mind. This river here is going to be a pretty important strategic element of the early game wars around here. So having this guy as our friend is going to be handy. Coherencia, this guy is Komux, right? So that's 1, and we do have 1 more diplomacy slot at the moment because of neutral stance. I think I will grab 1 more ally just to give myself every advantage I can think of. Another ally could be Caloria. They do border Alaricia, and this means that... Because the thing, too, with allies is you have to think about, is the allies' land going to draw in the enemy in a way that's strategically helpful? And the existence of this unfortified provincial capital right here next to Alaricia is going to be very handy for the Alarician war. So I think I'll bring in Caloria too. They are also completely outside of Carpetania, so I think that's going to make sense. I'm trying to think if there's any reason I wouldn't want to get someone who's directly bordering Coherencia. Probably not. Let's see, they're both in the Wettonia Meridionalis and the Wettonia Septentrionalis provinces. I think I'll go for it because I like the... Because the other thing, too, is being allied with this guy means that they'll be able to get military access to get over to the war. So I think this makes the most sense. I'll ally with Caloria as well. There we go. Those are our 2 allies. Let's go ahead and get our war with Duitiquia ready. All these allies are much, much more so for the Alaricia war, which will probably involve multiple participants and will be a lot harder. The Duitiquia war is going to be more of an easier fight, hopefully. Duitiquia does have a fort, but they also have an unfortified province, which we can take advantage of, as do we, which they can take advantage of, so we have to be a little thoughtful about that. We'll come back to that in a moment. Next up are our offices, which I probably want to switch around. There are some pretty bad people in these offices. I think what I'm going to do is just completely dismiss everybody and then start over from scratch, because it's too hard to do it on the fly with people still in office. So we'll do it like this. Also remembering to go in to our technology thing and dismiss all of our researchers. As a tribe, our research ability is going to be extremely limited, so we're going to be able to put in the least competent people for family loyalty purposes into the researcher slots. Okay, so let's see here. Arbiter. We're going to probably want, let's see here. Actually, let me take a look at the great families for a moment. So we've got the Duitiquia family, we've got the Galbi family, and the Arosii family. Okay. So, let's see here. We've got 2 pretty good... Actually, we've got quite a large number of super good charisma characters. That's nice to see. Let's put... you're actually the wife of Mandubrachius, so let's put you in the Arbiter spot, I think. No, your loyalty is too bad. Let's put Buit Arosis in the Arbiter spot. There we go. Weak-willed, assertive. That's probably fine. This affects our aggressive expansion change, which could be handy later on. And for this one, let's put the this Duitiquia guy in place. National Tribesman Happiness, extremely important, so we need a top charisma character over there. Now, fortunately, unlike the Carpetania Campaign, we actually do have some good martial characters here. Although I should note something I... Actually, hold on. Is that a change made by... Hold on. Yes, so this is an Invictus change. You can actually generate high martial characters in exchange for military experience, which is, I think, a phenomenal addition, and I may be making use of this later. You can even pick whether you want them to have land war or naval sort of modifiers, so that's pretty good. Anyways, we'll keep that in mind for later. Right now, it's not going to be super important, but let's go ahead and put you as the war chief. Or actually, I may move you to this if this one's more important. Yeah, we're going to switch you. You're going to go there, and you are going to go there. There we go. That's much better. Because we still need to have her build up statesmanship for that 9 to matter, but this impact, the manpower recovery speed, is much more important than the monthly military experience. All right, High Priest. Clearly, you're pretty competent. So let's put this Galbi character here. Good stuff. Wise one, sure. Yeah, citizen happiness. It's not super important, but I think we do have a couple citizens in our nation. We have 2 citizens. Well, I guess we do technically have a couple by the loosest definition. All right, magistrate. Whoops. National tax is important. And then lastly, Werica and Duitiquia. All right, so just like that, if you look at the second number of all of these officers, and you compare to earlier in the video when I first opened this tab, I've completely cleaned up my government, and I now need to go ahead and put some of the other family members into the researcher slots so that I don't have disloyalty. But because I have so many research malices in the early game, not going to be a huge issue that I won't be getting much research. Literally, I clicked every tab before I clicked the right one. Yeah, all right, so you are going to be good for that. For civic advances. Oh, is that all of the family members I need? Yeah, I'm at 3 out of 3. Okay, that's pretty good. So the rest of these I'll do based on stuff like having obsessive, which means that we may be able to get additional innovations if assigned to a research position. Anybody else have traits like that? Just that one person? All right, Exu Barata, you're going to be best as my zeal researcher, I think. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. That's nice to see. Lastly, we'll just go for competency now. So Boea, you're going to be my charisma researcher. I actually thought I'd need to put more family members in to shore it up, but it's actually looking totally fine. And here we'll put I don't want the Galbi to be, well, I may as well put you there. That's fine. We can always put more family members in here if we have an almost fully Galbi research situation here, except for this character. That's totally fine. Okay, so that's that sorted out. In terms of laws, I will go ahead and change the law right now, I think. Actually, hold on. Will I? Let's get this set up first. We're going to fabricate on Alaricia, and this is definitely the one I'm going to pick. Alright, now that that's settled, we have 40 left. I think I will make a change here. So the way this works in the tribal laws, and I think I talked about this in the Carpetania campaign, is the ones on the left side of the screen are your migratory tribe laws that are unlocked as you have less centralization below 0. And the ones over here are your settled tribe laws that unlock as you have more centralization over certain amounts. So we're going to try and get stuff that boosts our centralization. However, I'm not necessarily rushing to get enough centralization to reform immediately. There are advantages to being a tribe over being a republic, especially because being a monarchy is more similar to being a tribe than being a republic is to being a tribe. Keeping in mind as well that once I actually form Carpetania, this will switch me to be a federated tribe, which will naturally become a republic a bit more seamlessly. So we're not in a huge rush to advance our centralization. We want to play as a federated tribe, at least for a little bit, kind of try it out. So we want to make picks here that make sense for the early game. So for example, national commerce income 20%, absolutely powerful for my playstyle in the mid game and late game. In the early game, not going to be super critical. As opposed to Civ level change, plus 0.03%, is actually probably more important in the early game, plus the extra centralization is quite handy. So between these two, I'd pick for the coin minting initiative. We could also pick between reducing tyranny or increasing ruler popularity gain. What's our popularity like right now? It is at 50. I think the tyranny won't be a super important issue in the early game, so I think I'd also go for this. Plus the extra centralization is just so good. So I think between the two, I think I'd rather pick ruler popularity gain for the early game. I do think that Civ change is a more important value than ruler popularity, but only for like after the super early game. I need my ruler to not become unpopular in the early game. That'd be a huge problem. So absolute authority. Having seen the authority wielded by some of our neighboring rulers, it becomes apparent that the head of our nation must seek to create greater executive powers amongst the disparate tribes. Not exactly cohesive with the federated tribe idea we're going for, but that's fine. Grab that. Okay, stability drop. That's fine. On to budget. So we're not going to touch any of this stuff. We could go for harsh taxation because research points don't matter at all right now. And honestly, well, hold on. Yeah, it doesn't really make a change at the moment. I don't think we have any slaves, or we don't have very many slaves at the moment right now. Hold on, we have one slave. This will matter more later, but for now we will go for it. Just because until we stop being a tribe, our research malices are so severe, it just doesn't matter at all. So we're gonna go for harsh taxation. That's fine. As for commerce, we're gonna just leave this alone for the extra import routes. That matters more than these other two. We've also got some Invictus additions down here. I looked at these in some test games, and I think these are overwhelmingly not worth it. These basically trade stability for money, and then also some other modifier. And I can think of almost no circumstance where 20 gold is worth 5 stability or 8 stability, and all the other malices that come with it too. So definitely not. We are going, also the other thing to note here is that we have a huge legion maintenance increase for being a tribe. We don't have any legions in the early game because we don't have the laws for that, but that's just something to keep in mind. I think what I'll probably do is increase the pay for an extra boost. I'm taking no chances at all. And extra morale means reduced manpower loss, so we're going to trade cultural happiness, which really just means economy for a stronger army in the early game. All right. On to religion. Now, this is a pretty important decision for the early game. Which of these guys do we go for? I could go for Iko Weyauna in order to get the tribesman happiness sort of reversed from what I just did over in the budget. Not that everyone in my integrated culture group is, or integrated culture is tribesmen, but that's a large number of them. So, let's see here. I didn't look at this before starting the recording. I probably should have, just so I wouldn't spend the whole rest of the episode looking at the screen. Let's come back to the screen in a moment, actually. Anything to do with these culture things? Probably not right now. I'll look at this later. Maybe I'll do this at the start of the next episode. As for this trade stuff, we can import some trade goods. I think what I want for the early game, unless I can get a combo that I really care about early on, anything that gives me a military advantage. I think leather might, right? Light infantry defense. We have actually access to a lot of trade goods. I can only get one base metal. If I could get two, I'd be able to get the light infantry offense. And I do already have precious metals. Let me see really quick here. What do we have resource-wise down here? We have got leather and leather. So actually both of we're going to get 2 leather from the war we're about to do, so we don't need to worry about that quite so much. In fact, hold on. Import. Are both of these from... Oh, one of them is from... Okay. Anyways, it might be worth getting 2 leather just for this war. Well, is it worth it, though? I'm not so sure. Woad could be strong, but we don't have access to anyone selling woad at the moment, so never mind. I could also just trade for... I could import for money purposes, which is a pretty good option. But there's not a lot of really valuable stuff available at the moment. Honestly, vegetables might be handy. And something I didn't even talk about yet is in weakness drastically increases the importance of food. And we're going to actually have to be a little careful about provincial food, as winter does really affect your food loss. So trading for a food resource might be smart as well. I'm going to come back to this after I do the rest of the stuff in this first episode, because I don't want to run out of time before getting ready. So one thing to note as well is sort of like the Carpetania Campaign. We have access to this kind of cheeky double army situation with a Duitiquian army joining our Constantian army. Oh, she'll look at who our governor is. Hold on. I didn't even think about that. Who are you? You are a minor character. Oh, God. You're a great finesse governor, but you're leading one of my armies. I can't have a 0 martial governor. That's just not general. It's just not going to happen. Wait, what was that trade? Hold on. Effective governor, local fort defense. Yeah, I'm going to replace you. Sorry. Who have we got? Oh, all my competent characters are in the government right now, so I may need to switch somebody around. I'm willing to switch somebody around if it means getting a really good governor. Particularly a good martial governor. Because at the moment, in the early game, I need my governors to be my generals. That's what I really care about. Let's see here. 7-6, 9-6. 9-3, 9-1, 6-5. Warmena Tatomala. Tough and guileless. Okay. I'm fine having a minor character governor. It's probably safest than having a great family member governor. 3 finesse isn't very good, but we're not going to be, developing this land right now. In the long term, we're going to have a big focus on playing tall in development, but in the early game, it's not going to be a focus at all. Any reason to pick this person? State religion happiness and province commerce. That's pretty good, though. Also 9 martial. Is that better than 2 more finesse? You're also younger and same loyalty. I think I'd rather have the happiness bonus. How much of a happiness bonus is given? Because then the lower finesse also reduces loyalty, provincial loyalty, which may be an issue. That being said, the Duitiquia region is largely not made up of Druidic, so having the happiness bonus from Zealous might actually not be as important as I might think. and the province commerce bonus won't matter for a long time. Let's go with the slightly better... Well, that being said... Yeah, 9 martial, 3 finesse. This is going to have to do it. Rowena is now in charge. She set it to be acquisition of wealth. That's fine. I should note that all of the various... the policies for your provinces have been changed around. We're at encourage trade right now. That's fine for right now. I can't do the cheesy, what's it called, bleed them dry mechanic, because this mod has, I think, wisely added some more malices to that, so you can't just do that for free on your capital province, which doesn't really make sense, but that's fine. Okay, so that's that. Let's actually get our army raised in this episode before I forget. Let's do it like this. Raise the armies. We're attacking Duitiquia. I think what we're going to do, let me think about our strategy for a moment. I think we're going to want, given that we're going to have our allies come into the war with me, we're going to want to gather probably in Solorbase and try and have them go to Toletum while I get my army in Solorbase. I could then fight them in Toletum, get a defense across the river battle in the plains, or I could go after Duitiquia and pull them away from Toletum, or I could go after Duitiquia, Carpetania, and pull them away from Toletum. I just want them to go for Toletum is the main thing and get bogged down up there. Or my allies could go after them in Toletum while I am in Solorbase. I could go for Duitiquia and I could go over to Duitiquia, Carpetania from Duitiquia. I think I need to control Solorbase and keep Solorbase under my protection and go for Duitiquia when they're not in Duitiquia and hopefully have them go for Toletum. Alright, so we're going to gather in Solorbase. I don't know why you appeared in Toletum. Whatever. Head to Solorbase. That's what matters. All right. Who's this? Oh, Mandubrakis is leading this force. I forgot that. Yeah, each of these forces has a different leader, essentially. Wait, hold on. You're not leading anybody. Wait. Why isn't her force being led by her? Hold on. Force of Duitiquia. These are both being led by... Okay, so the... Oh, yeah, that's right. So the tribal chiefs actually override who the governor is. So in that case, we're going to switch you to be a high finesse governor if your martial presence doesn't matter at all. That's good to know. All right, so we're going to switch this then. Because I'd much rather have a high finesse governor if I can't use this character as a general. I guess I was misremembering how that works when you're playing as a tribe. In a monarchy, it works like that. And probably in a republic, it works like that too. Actually, I'm not sure about republics, but in a monarchy, it works like that for sure. Let's go for you. You do have a reduced fort defense. Well, actually, hold on. Is that may actually be a decisive issue. Let's just go for Maguna Galana. There we go. That should keep the loyalty in check. Food problems, that's fine. Trade routes, we'll figure out. Okay, let's come back over to Omen here. So, actually, anything else I need to do? No, I don't think so. Okay. I may just go for Condamius. Extra 5% morale armies. I'm really stacking the morale bonuses in the early game. It may be a little overkill, but I just don't want to take any chances after the stuff that happened in the previous campaign. So for this early game, the early 5 years of Crazy War, Mandamius is going to lead us to glory. Mandamius is a local sky god among the Iberian tribes and one of their primary deities. Among the Romans, he is often associated or conflated with their own sky god, Jupiter. And in some cases, even used as an epithet to create the syncretic Jupiter Condamius. Okay, that's fine. Now, do I want to switch one of my other gods? How much does this cost? 15 stability. Let's see here. I think I want to so I can switch to them in 3 years if I need to. Nabia is actually a pretty good god for my playstyle. This is something I'll look at between episodes, because I can't just look at these huge menus for the rest of this episode. So instead what I'll do for the rest of this episode is go over, and where was it? Over here, and pick my trade routes. Livestock's also a pretty good option. I'm thinking here's the thing, right? Like, if I get vegetables, I can start moving slaves with I was about to say with a clean conscience, because I'm not spending more money, but that's actually quite an evil thing to say. So, here's a pro tip from me to you. You should always feel guilty about moving slaves. That's just probably the right way to live your life. But as a game mechanic, I feel like I'm wasting less money in moving slaves by having vegetables active. I guess alternatively, stone for the build cost could be good early game. I'm not going to build anything right away, though, so maybe not. What resources will I get once I take this land? I know I'm going to get leather down here. Cloth, wine, and base metals. So I will get base metals, which is great for that bonus I was talking about earlier. Keeping in mind as well that my military is largely light infantry with some cav and archers. Could be worth getting leather just for this early war. And then once I take this land, I'll have leather and I can reorganize it. That being said, I may also not have access to all the other options in a few months once everyone starts trading with everybody else. Ooh, do I guarantee the leather right now for the light infantry defense bonus, or do I go for vegetables? Because grain is also totally good. You get a lot of food with grain. I don't think I need grain quite yet, though. Vegetables, though, so good. 4% local manpower from 2 wood could be good as well, honestly. Or the horses could be good, too. No, that's just heavy infantry, though. Or heavy cavalry, and this is just heavy infantry. I think for the options that I have... Let's see, anything else that boosts tribesman happiness that I might want to get instead? Furs for the 8% local tribesman happiness. In Toletum. I think I'm going to go with vegetables. I'm going to go with vegetables. I'm going to trade with Contestani and with the Atolalia. All right. Got our vegetable surplus. That's going to be probably a game-long surplus for me. There we go. Okay. I think that's basically it for this first episode. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to do in the first episode. Between episodes, I'm going to look through all of the various gods from each of these lists and make my decisions about which to switch to in the early game and which to, go with and whatnot. I think I made the right call with Candamius as my first god for the first 5 years. But that's going to be it for this first episode of the Carpetania Campaign. A bit of a frantic and crowded first episode, as usual, for my channel. But hope that you enjoyed this new modded Let's Play. This is going to be an interesting experience to play with mods for the first time on the channel. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Carpetania Campaign and its long-term goals. Give me some tips, give me some suggestions, give me some love and support. It's always nice to get that as well. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all staying safe. I'll see you all next time.